What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to rank all of the endings in the Scream franchise. So, in the last video, or maybe 2 videos ago, we did all of the openings, and I feel like we're probably somewhat on the same page. I didn't see too many people super mad at me, super furious with my ranking, so I appreciate that. This one's tough. Let me tell you right now. As opposed to the openings, I think there were some weak openings to the franchise, at least compared to each other. Okay, and we talked about that in that video. I think there's some you can absolutely say, it's a step below, right? It's below it. For endings, as I found out when making my list, and again, because I'm 500 years old, I wrote it all down. I realized this is hard. There really is no bad ending to the Scream. I think all of the monologues, the third acts on, are honestly all really good. So this is a hard list. Again, maybe you can swap these, coin flip some of these. I want to hear yours in the comments. Let me know your ranking, and let's just jump in. So number 6, we're actually going to do Scream 5. I didn't think it would actually be last. And again, keeping in mind, I don't actually not like it. I actually really, really do like it. It's tough because the others are so good. I guess the thing for me is this would be a duplicate of 1, right? I think that held back, in my opinion, the opening. While I love the opening, I think I put it number 3 on my list. It's still a copy of 1. The ending is still a copy of 1. You know, Amber's line to basically kick off the third act or the final act, I thought was awesome. I like their monologue. I think Amber and Richie have really good chemistry when they're going back and forth, going over their plan and the reasoning. I don't love the reasoning. I guess that can be part of it, right? Like when you reveal yourself, when you have this third act, well, sometimes the reasoning of the Ghostface killers is a big part of what makes it. There's other, kind of set pieces, but sometimes it's what they're saying. So I think they have great chemistry and they're very energetic and dynamic. And I like the fights. I like splitting it up where basically Gail and Sydney take out Amber, and then really you leave Richie to Sam, and Tara helps here and there. I like it. I think it's a really, really good ending. I was happy with it. Wasn't super excited, with the motive, but nothing about it really made me mad or upset. I enjoyed that ending quite a bit. Number 5, I'm actually going to do Scream 4. So this was also kind of surprising because I've always talked actually about how much I like the ending of Scream 4. So let me kind of give myself a reasoning for why this isn't higher or why it's where it's at. So I think the Jill reveal through when she passes out or goes next to Sydney and kind of cuts there, I think that is tremendous. It is a little bit of a copycat of 1, in a sense of Charlie and Jill and the way that they're going. Well, the plan was originally, right, to just kind of injure each other. There's a bit of 1, so I think maybe that holds it back. But I think just the cleverness, I've always loved Jill's motive. I think so many people have said it before, and I've said it too. Jill's reasoning is awesome. The fame angle, right, I think is awesome. So you have that. You have Jill injuring herself. You have just the reveal, Sydney running away from Charlie and then Jill stabbing her is epic. And also, like, Sydney, well, I feel like Sydney almost goes through worse things in other movies, but for this movie, it really, it takes her down. Those injuries that Jill did to her almost took her out. So I think that's phenomenal. And I like the hospital. Okay, I think there's kind of a divide of do you like that they kind of extended it versus not. I think it's almost 2 different talking points, because I think if you ended it where it cuts to black and the original idea of, basically Jill gets away with it and, they don't know, and Sydney, you don't know if she's going to make it or not. Like, if you stopped it there, I think that's more powerful. I think that's honestly better. But yet again, we get the hospital scene, right? And I like it. I like that you get to see all of them together. All of them, including Judy, are actually basically a part of taking Jill out. I really love it. I think it's just a matter of, is it more powerful to have what we had or to have continued down the road that, was kind of the original plan? Now, if they went down that original road and then it still happened the same way, they still never made another movie, Wes, passed on, and then we get to Radio Silence, what do you even do? Then you have to get Emma Roberts back. Do you have to continue with the Scream 5, the original kind of Scream 5 idea? It would be pretty nuts, actually, to even think of it. So I think it's just so powerful, and it's almost like just the idea of what could have been. I think that's such a powerful feeling that it kind of hurts the hospital part. So that's why it's where it's at. Number 4, I'm going to have Scream 6. So I wanted to put this higher. I was, considering where to put it. Some of the things that I absolutely loved. Well, I liked how they handled, like, the taking on the different characters. I actually At its core, I like almost everything, super like almost everything about the Scream 6 ending. I guess something that really hurts it is Chad living. I think that was probably a mistake. The idea that Kirby could be a killer is a mistake. Now, Kirby being a killer, maybe not necessarily part of that finale, right? When they're back to back, Sam and Tara, and then the ghost faces are back to back. But it does come up, right? Because Kirby steps in, stops them, and because of Detective Bailey still trying to put on this act that Kirby's the killer, and Sam and Tara for some reason buy it, that hurt, because it's like, there's no way it's Kirby. All of us know it's not Kirby. You know what I mean? It's like, why do these characters believe it? I guess you get it. That did hurt it. And then I think the ghost faces, we've talked about them. They're definitely on the weaker end. Ethan is actually my least favorite ghost face almost of all time. Quinn is pretty solid, but she's not like, top 5 or anything. And really, same thing for Detective Bailey. The monologue, the reasoning with Richie isn't so strong. So those are some of the weaknesses. Some of the strengths, like, I think you should include the chase. So, and with Chad, like that entire kind of arc of it as well. I love it. I mean, I thought that was super powerful. Some people think it's cheesy. That's okay. I love the synchronized, cleaning of the knife. I thought that was absolutely epic. So if you're including that kind of part to it, there's some hand-to-hand combat there that I really liked. And then just the way that it all kind of played out, I think Sam kind of took over. Sam took over that monologue, and she did it insane. Kirby comes in, right, to help a bit. And even the deaths, like, Quinn just gets shot. It's pretty anticlimactic, I guess, in a way. But Ethan's death was awesome. And really, you got to give, and I do, this is why I put it so high, the Detective Bailey phone call that's then Sam, I think it's really Sidney calling, in the ending of 1. It's like that on steroids, and I think such an incredible scene. So I really love that. I really love the action. I love how it's kind of broken up. Some of the reasoning, some of the motives, some of that, and the characters, I guess, that's where the weakness is playing. But the strengths, I believe, are so high that they mask a lot of those weaknesses, at least to me. Number 3, I'm going to say Scream 2. Now, I've talked about this before, and because we're specifically talking about the endings here, I'll keep it to the ending. A lot of Scream 2, I'll watch, and I'll think it's, like, absolutely incredible. And then, as time goes on, I kind of, like, drop it in, like, my and I think really it's only Scream 2 that has that. I don't know why, but that's just how it is. So the ending is kind of like that. So I got to kind of put myself back into when I'm watching the ending, right? When we get the reveal and Derek dies, and then, you have Gail walking in, and you're like, it's possible. You got to think back then. I guess it's possible it's Gail. It doesn't really make sense. And all of a sudden, Mrs. Loomis comes in. It's so good. The action and the taking it to like an 11 out of 10 in a different way, because I think the ending obviously of 1 is so good. This one went bigger, not necessarily better, but it went literally bigger. And you have all the effects, and Sydney's messing with the, the set, and all these things are closing and opening and falling and all. I think it's so good. And then you even have a bit of back and forth when Cotton enters the picture. You really don't know what his frame of mind is. So it could really go any way. Now, like Sydney, she's the hero. She's the protagonist. Would you really kill her there? Probably not. But you don't necessarily know that. And Cotton is kind of like unhinged, or at least kind of portrayed like that on purpose throughout most of the film. It's like, well, you don't know what he's going to do in the situation. So I think in the moment watching it, high stakes, high energy, high action. I don't even know if it's like special effects, but it feels like an 11 out of 10. Like they literally went bigger. It's not better than Scream 1's ending, but it certainly is taking that approach of a sequel that everything kind of has to be bigger than it. Again, for whatever reason, as time goes on, if I'm not watching it, it kind of falls. I would say maybe on some days this is like my second favorite ending, but as time goes on, I feel like it kind of drifts down. So that's why it's at number 3. Number 2, I'm going Scream 3. I've always said it before. While Scream 3 is definitely on the tail end of my overall movie rankings, it's not for the ending. That's not the case, right? The ending of this movie, and I think I put the beginning, did I put it at dead last or second to last? So the beginning, I think, is definitely one of the weakest, if not the weakest in the whole franchise. But gosh darn, that ending. I've seen like a lot of clips, like people, the Twitter Scream community loves to post like the final monologue, like the back and forth between Sydney and Roman, some of the fighting. People like to just repost the clips on Twitter. I love to see it because I think it's just so, it really is so epic. I think, the idea that Sydney doesn't even know who this guy is, it takes away from it like a little bit, but then you realize, or at least I realize, or I think of, like, that's still kind of so epic, right? Like, he goes on this great monologue as Ghostface. So it's Roger's voice, it's his, it's his face, shows the bulletproof vest, and then, takes it off and does the hair. And it's like, who is this person, right? To Sydney. And I think then their back and forth, I think, is so good. Every part of this ending is so good. So the monologue where it's Roger's voice is incredible. Then when it's Roman and Sydney and they're going back and forth and Sydney is swearing at him and all these just, I'm tired of all this kind of stuff, I think is so powerful. So powerful. The music, by the way, is pretty killer in the ending. Their fight is pretty killer. And then just how it all ends. And also, again, like, you don't know how it's going to go. If you really try to put yourself back in there, this is the third movie. There's no guarantee of more of them. In fact, they're probably, you're not going to do more of them. It's a trilogy. It's a horror trilogy. Does Sydney die? And she does get beaten in the ending. And obviously, she had the bulletproof, which is just a genius character move that, Sydney would be that kind of resourceful and smart. It's so good. It's really incredible. And even, I would say, some of the weaknesses of some of the other ones, like if you think of 6, again, where it kind of falls apart even beyond the actual fight and Ghostface reveal, the ending, right, where then you see, Mindy comes and then you find out Chad lives. Like, I think in a way that hurts it. You think about the ending of 3, I think even when they're at Sydney's house and the door, the door gets blown open and she accepts it, that idea that she's finally free, I think that's so powerful and real. I mean, you really can't, I think, recapture that any other time. And it's so powerful. It's more powerful than a lot of the other movies. So I would absolutely say this deserves it. I've always loved it. And like I said, I like seeing clips because it's one of my favorite. And that only leaves, obviously, Scream 1. A little unfair, but hey, when Scream 1 factually, or at least to me subjectively, Scream 1 is the best of the entire franchise. So its beginning is the best. I ranked it as the best in the a couple videos ago. And then its ending is also the best. You can't beat it. You can't beat it, and it's so good. And when you try to redo it in 5, well, there's a reason why you're trying to, you know what I mean? Like 5, I think, is special in some ways, but it's also kind of just eye-opening because it's like, well, this movie wants to copy, or like the play on it is that they're copying Scream 1. But why? Well, it's because Scream 1 is a masterpiece. You know what I mean? The opening of that film is phenomenal. And the ending, the Billy Stu reveal, their back and forth. Now, this is driven a lot, I think, by charisma and characters. I think all 3 of them, I'd like to throw on the 3. I guess Gail's a part of it. Randy is even a part of it. So technically, you know what I mean? You got 5. But really, it's when Billy turns around and you're like, oh, she messed up. She picked the wrong person. And Billy is the killer. She tries to run into the kitchen. Stu is the other killer. And from that point on, I think, Sydney sells it so well. I think, obviously, Stu and Billy, their relationship and bouncing kind of back and forth. And it's led so much by them. You could argue Stu. I think both of them do a really good job. Obviously, Sydney doing the modulator and doing the voice and calling them, I think is epic. Some of the one-liners, my parents are going to kill me, and, throwing the phone at it, like all this stuff. It's just so full of iconic moments. And then the deaths, obviously, the Stu death will always be ingrained in people's memories and all that. It's so good. You really can't, I don't think you can ever beat it, much like you probably can't beat the opening of Scream 1. It started like this iconic franchise, and it's just so good. How can you ever, try it? All you have to do is you have to try to do your own thing, which I want to give 6. We talked about that for the opening and now even in this video for the endings. Like you got to try things different. They're probably never going to beat 1, but you can't beat 1 by redoing 1, right? You got to try your own stuff, and maybe you get lucky. Maybe something is actually better than 1. And that's what I think all these movies have been trying to do since that. So let me know what your rankings are in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all for the next one.